The lights dimmed, and a low murmur rolled through the theater as the next name echoed across the hall. No flashy introduction. No dramatic backstory on the screen. Just a single figure walking onto the America's Got Talent stage, calm, focused, almost unsettling in their silence. The judges glanced at each other, curious but unconvinced. The audience leaned back in their seats, expecting another routine, another performance they'd applaud politely and forget by the next commercial break. Then the equipment was rolled in. Thick steel bars, heavy platforms, chains that looked more at home in an industrial warehouse than on a television stage. A few people laughed nervously, others whispered, trying to guess what was about to happen. From the judges' table, Simon Cowell narrowed his eyes, leaning forward just slightly. He'd seen thousands of acts cross this stage, and something about this moment felt different. There was no rush, no showmanship, only quiet confidence. The contestant took position at the center of the stage. The music faded completely, leaving behind a heavy, uncomfortable silence. You could hear someone cough in the crowd. The kind of silence that makes your heart beat louder. Fingers wrapped around cold steel. Muscles tightened. The contestant exhaled slowly, as if blocking out the world beyond the lights. Then it began. At first nothing moved. Not even a fraction. The weight sat there defiant, daring anyone to try. A few seconds passed. 10, 15. The tension grew so thick it felt like the air itself had weight. Somewhere in the audience a gasp escaped. Then, barely noticeable, the steel shifted. Eyes widened. The bar trembled, vibrating under pressure no one expected to see on a live television stage. The contestant's face hardened, jaw clenched, veins surfacing like cracks in stone. This wasn't fast, this wasn't easy. This was a battle. Human will against unyielding metal. The crowd rose slightly from their seats without realizing it. Phones were lifted, forgotten rules ignored. A woman covered her mouth, a man shook his head in disbelief. The judges' smiles faded, replaced by expressions of genuine shock. Simon Cowell leaned forward further now, elbows on the table, completely locked in. This wasn't a trick, there were no wires, no edits, just raw power unfolding in real time. The weight lifted another inch. That's when the energy in the room changed. You could feel it ripple through the audience, a collective realization that they were witnessing something rare, something dangerous. Every second felt stretched, as if time itself had slowed to watch. The contestants' breathing grew heavier, audible even over the distant hum of the lights. Sweat dripped onto the stage, darkening the floor beneath their feet. The bar continued to rise. With every movement, the tension escalated. One slip could mean injury, one mistake could end everything. And yet, the contestant pushed on, refusing to let go, refusing to surrender. The steel bent slightly under pressure, just enough for the front row to notice. Gasps turned into shouts, shouts into screams. By the time the weight was fully off the ground, the entire theater was on its feet. Applause hadn't started yet. No one dared break the moment. It was awe, pure and silent, washing over the room. In that instant, America's Got Talent wasn't a TV show, it was a witness. And the stage, usually reserved for singers, dancers and dreamers, had become the battlefield where human strength challenged the impossible. The moment the weight left the ground, the atmosphere shifted from shock to sheer disbelief. The crowd, already on edge, seemed to hold its breath all over again. This was no longer about the initial lift. This was about how far the human body could be pushed before it finally said no. The contestant stood there, locked in position, muscles trembling under a load that looked cruelly unforgiving. Every fiber strained, fighting gravity with nothing but willpower and years of discipline. Time moved differently now. Seconds felt longer, heavier. The contestants' arms quivered, shoulders tightening as if they might tear apart. Sweat streamed down their face, blurring vision, yet their eyes remained fixed forward. There was no panic, only focus. The kind forged through countless hours of training. Through pain no audience ever sees. The stage lights reflected off the steel, making the weight appear even more massive, more impossible. In the audience, reactions varied wildly. Some people stared, frozen in awe. Others instinctively shook their heads, as if watching something they believed shouldn't be allowed. A few winced, unable to look directly, imagining the strain on joints and bones. The silence returned, broken only by the sound of labored breathing, and the faint creak of metal under pressure. Even the judges, usually quick with commentary, sat speechless. The contestant adjusted their grip, a small movement, but one that carried enormous risk. Fingers tightened again, knuckles whitening. This was the point where most attempts fail, where exhaustion takes over and the body demands release. You could see the battle playing out on their face, the pull between instinct and determination. Every instinct screamed to stop. Every muscle begged for relief. But stopping wasn't part of the plan. With a deep, controlled breath, the contestant pushed harder. The weight rose higher, inch by inch, defying common sense. The crowd reacted in waves, a rising murmur, followed by scattered cheers that quickly died down as people realized the moment required reverence, not noise. This wasn't a celebration yet, this was survival. The contestant's legs shook violently now, knees locked in place through sheer will. Veins stood out like cables, pulsing with effort. Simon Cowell watched closely, eyes narrowed, expression unreadable. He had seen danger on this stage before, but rarely had it felt so real, so immediate. There was no margin for error here, no safety net. Just one person standing between control and collapse, the kind of moment that makes even seasoned judges forget they're on television. The weight reached chest height, gasps echoed through the theater. A woman in the front row grabbed her partner's arm. Somewhere in the back someone shouted encouragement before clapping a hand over their mouth, realizing how fragile the moment was. The contestants' breathing grew louder, more urgent, each inhale a fight. Sweat dripped from their chin, splashing onto the stage as their bodies shook under the pressure. Pain was written across their face now, raw and undeniable. But so was resolve. This wasn't reckless strength. This was calculated endurance, built through repetition and sacrifice. Years of early mornings, missed celebrations, injuries trained through, not around. All of it led to this single moment under blinding lights. Then, slowly, deliberately, the contestants stabilized the weight. The tremors eased just enough for the audience to sense it. Control had been claimed. The room erupted into applause before anyone could stop themselves. The sound washed over the stage, loud and emotional, pushing the contestant forward. This wasn't just physical power anymore, it was mental dominance over pain, fear, and exhaustion. For a brief second, everything aligned. The weight held steady. The contestant stood tall, victorious over the limits most people never dare to approach. And in that moment, it became clear, this wasn't just strength on display, it was proof that the human body, when driven by purpose, can go far beyond what anyone believes possible. The instant the weight was released and returned safely to the stage, the tension that had gripped the theater finally broke. It was as if the entire room exhaled at once. Sound exploded from every corner. Cheers, screams, applause crashing together in a wave so powerful it felt physical. People jumped to their feet, hands clapping above their heads, shouting words that were lost in the roar. This wasn't polite appreciation. This was awe, unfiltered and overwhelming. The contestants stood still for a moment, chest rising and falling rapidly, eyes unfocused as adrenaline surged through their body. Their hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the sudden release of pressure after holding the impossible. Sweat soaked their clothing, muscles still tight as if unsure whether the moment was truly over. Then reality set in. They had done it, on this stage, in front of the world. The judges rose almost instinctively. Simon Cowell stood first, shaking his head slowly, a rare smile breaking through his usual composure. He looked down at the stage, then back at the contestant, as if trying to process what he'd just witnessed. This wasn't a trick, a gimmick, or clever editing. This was raw, undeniable human capability. The kind that forces even the most skeptical minds to accept that limits are often illusions. The crowd refused to sit. Applause thundered on, growing louder, fueled by emotion. Some people wiped their eyes, surprised by how deeply the moment had affected them. Others pointed at the stage, replaying the lift in their minds, trying to understand how it was even possible. Phones were held high, capturing history in shaky videos that would never fully do the moment justice. The contestant finally looked up, scanning the audience. Their expressions softened, the intensity giving way to something more vulnerable. Relief, gratitude, pride. They placed a hand over their heart, nodding slowly, acknowledging the energy pouring toward them. For a brief moment the massive theater felt intimate, thousands of strangers connected by one extraordinary feat. When the judges began to speak, their words barely mattered compared to their expressions. Shock, respect, genuine admiration. Each comment only reinforced what everyone already knew: this performance had crossed a line from entertainment into legend. This wasn't just one of the strongest acts of the night. It was one that would be remembered long after the season ended. As the applause continued, the contestants stepped back, allowing themselves to breathe fully for the first time. Behind the strength was a story no one could see. Years of disbelief, sacrifices made in silence, moments of doubt faced alone. This stage was the reward, but also the proof that every painful repetition, every failure, every moment of wanting to quit had meant something. The camera panned across the audience, capturing faces lit with disbelief and inspiration. Children stared wide-eyed. Adults nodded thoughtfully. Somewhere out there, someone watching at home felt a spark ignite. A reminder that greatness doesn't always look flashy, that true power is often built quietly, patiently, far from applause. As the lights dimmed and the moment slowly transitioned to the next act, something lingered in the air, a sense that the standard had just been raised, that what people believed was strong enough had been redefined. America's Got Talent had seen incredible performers before, but this was different. This was a moment that challenged perception, that forced people to rethink what the human body and mind can achieve together. The contestant walked off the stage, disappearing into the wings, but the impact remained. Long after the cheers faded, long after the episode ended, that lift would live on. Replayed, discussed, remembered. Not just as a display of strength, but as a reminder that history isn't always made with words or music. Sometimes it's made in silence, through effort, resolve, and the courage to attempt the impossible.